Hello everyone and welcome back to the UConn Huskies Dynasty. In the last episode, the Huskies went back-to-back, winning another national championship against the Tulane Green Wave, who we severely underestimated. In this episode, we'll be going through the offseason and preparing for year number 8. And it could be a pretty crazy offseason. There's a number of players that might be leaving. The big ones being Dennis Colin, Kareem Ursua, Max Cadet obviously was a senior as well as, having a career-ending injury. Mike Hurd may declare for the draft. Novak is a senior. He's likely leaving. Pelshak is probably declaring for the draft, although he might not. We just don't know, remains to be seen. Nolan Lindsay, a lot of the offensive line honestly might be declaring for the draft. So there's going to be a lot of turnover, I think, going into next season. But let's do a quick season recap just before we get started in advancing. So here's the stats for everyone this season: 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns, 16 interceptions for John. Pretty similar year, but undeniably a bit worse for John. He suffered more sacks. He had one more interception. He had less touchdowns and he had less yards. So it was definitely worse than his freshman campaign, but also just incredibly similar at the same time. I mean, he only had one more completion on the season and only 2 more attempts. I mean, that is like uncanny consistency. Running the ball, Ursua, with all of the work that he got in the playoffs, does eclipse 1,000 yards, ends up with 6 touchdowns on the season. Volk with 446. He missed the rest of the year with an injury. Borden ended up with 438, and we did unfortunately have to burn his redshirt status due to all of the halfback injuries. Cadet, of course, being that injury, that big one, broke his back early in the season. Here's his career stats. I think he was going to have such an insane season this year. He was going to be my primary back 100%, and I think what he was doing as the year started kind of shows that. Obviously, the game against Texas Tech is the one where he broke his back, but then before that had a couple of really good games and one kind of mediocre one, but I think was on pace to have an excellent season. In the receiving game, we are of course saying goodbye to the senior Dalton Schmizniak, finishing with 16 touchdowns, 1,500 yards, 73 receptions, and just had an incredible career as a UConn Husky. Played a little bit in his redshirt season, 439 yards for him, and then 1,100, 1,100, and 1,500 in 2030. Truly his best season as a send-off. Such an interesting player. He's not going to get drafted. He's not good enough. 82 overall. There's just no chance he gets drafted, but was easily one of the best receivers I've ever had the pleasure to play with in any series. Obviously, his skill caps were so bad, but he was such a great route runner. He had a 94 release, plus the press pro ability. Like, dude just got off the line and got downfield. He, of course, wore the number 33 for the rest of the season for Max Cadet. What a fun player he was, with a very interesting and hard to say last name that I got very used to saying. Love Dalton Schmizniak. He will forever be a legend of the UConn Dynasty. And if you didn't see it, Dalton did break the record for receiving yards in a UConn career, as well as touchdown catches in a UConn career. He did also this season set the record for receiving yards in a single season for a UConn Huskies player as well. He also tied Dorian Tobin's touchdown catches record from 2027 with 16. That's super impressive from Tobin, considering that we didn't make a national championship in that season. Tevin Madu finishes just short of 900, 849 yards on the season. Had the most catches on the team though. He was my drag route merchant. He ran so many drag routes as the wide receiver 2 and sort of slot receiver this season. And a lot of the time he was just open underneath for free yards and it was very easy to get him the ball. Jeffrey Ritchie, 764 for him. Ursua, 447. Beaver, I feel like really came alive at the end of the season. Unfortunate thing though for Juan Beaver, same thing that most of our tight ends suffer with. He is at his skill caps. But we did unlock that architect ability, and now hopefully he should be seeing some increases in the future. Emmett Goda, in the games that he got to play, had 187. He is probably the wide receiver 2 next season. We'll see what kind of upgrades he gets this offseason, but that's what I'm thinking. Jeffrey Ritchie and then Goda. As for the big fellas, Manny Smith gave up the most sacks, 8 of them in total. AJ Kunazik, also playing the left side, gave up 6. Dennis Colin finishes with 125 total tackles, 40 TFLs, 10.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. The man is a beast. And we did end up with enough interceptions where it looks like he's probably not going to attempt to transfer, but I don't think it matters anyway. I would be shocked if this guy does not declare for the draft. And I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but we have that house rule in place. If they are going to be a top 3 round projected pick, then we will not be convincing them to stay, no matter how likely it is that they would. Nate Putu finishes with 101 tackles. His real downfall was just the lack of athleticism he had. If he was as fast as a guy like Joshua Dora, he could have been genuinely unstoppable. Crazy thing is he still had so much room to grow, but unfortunately was a senior this season. Joshua Dora with 95 total tackles, Tool with 91. Leader in TFLs, of course, was Dennis Colin with 40. Keo ends up with 31. October with 27. Novak 24. Leader in sacks, Kevin October 19.5. Keo 15.5. Novak 11.5. And let's talk about Clyde. He was a transfer. In fact, he transferred from Ohio State and then played his sophomore, junior, and senior seasons with us, where this season in particular had a huge breakout, was so good this season. 11.5 sacks. Played the same role he did last season, and he just didn't do as much with it. I don't know what happened to Clyde this year, but he became a whole nother animal, and he was so good for us. Definitely the best transfer we have ever had. So good, in fact, that sometimes I forget that he was a transfer. Darren Michelle finishes with 9 sacks. David Sun has 8.5. That is stupid for a guy that did not play very much. Insane. He definitely has an opportunity to be one of the main sub linebackers next season, assuming Dennis Colin leaves. Biggest issue for him right now, he is at those skill caps. So to me, he is a bit more of a depth piece, but he does have, I believe, the best play recognition stat on the whole team. So he's a very smart player. Leader in interceptions, Nate Putu, and Athea Ndukwe with 3. What a great ending to the season for him. He's another guy that he's not at his skill caps, but he has worse skill caps than just about every other corner currently rostered. So I do worry about him being able to stay on the team and keep up with the growth of the other young corners on this team, because the cornerback room is, I think, the youngest core on this team currently. Colin had a couple picks. Radovich, before getting injured, had 2 picks. Fayyad with 1, Sun with 1, Sims with 1, Duggan with 1. Leader in deflections was Alex Fayyad with 17. Really felt like he came to life this season. Ended up being a really good corner for us, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Darren Michelle forced 3 fumbles this season. A lot of guys forced 1. And then Siaki Tool was just an opportunist, man, jumping on forced fumbles. 3 fumble recoveries for him. 2 for Larry Hay, which is hilarious because I think he played maybe 2 times all season. Kevin October with a couple recoveries, and Iosefa Duggan with 1. By the way, is that name pronounced Yosefa and I'm just an idiot? Kicking stats, if you're into that kind of thing, 25 of 31 for Hollis, who, by the way, is pretty close to his ratings maximums. He has some improvements to be had in accuracy, which is really what I need him to improve with. I'm okay with his leg as it is. It's just hard to kick deep kicks with him because the meter is moving like crazy. And then punting stats, Eli Chestnut, 37 punts, 1,400 yards. Here's the career stats so far. If Pelshak does decide to go pro, 9,300 yards. He's actually not far at all from having the UConn career record. He would certainly break it in his junior season if he chooses to stay. Max Cadet finishes with 2,300 yards. This would have been well in the 3,000s had he not gotten injured, and 28 touchdowns for Max. Gross. And then Ursua mostly only played this season with a little bit last year. Dalton Schmizniak finishes with 4,300 yards in his career, 50 touchdown grabs. Looks really impressive when you can see all of it in one place. 1,500 run after catch. Just such an elite receiver despite the low overall. Defensively, Joshua Dora will graduate with 232 total tackles. Putu with 176. Dennis Colin did not play a ton until this season because of guys like Raheem Lovelace and Joey Terrell before him. 161 tackles in his career, the bulk of that obviously coming this season. And here's one final look at the conference standings. Tulane, obviously the best team in the ACC. I'll scroll through these pretty quick and you're welcome to pause and take a look. App State and Western Kentucky have become 2 pretty good teams out of the American. In the Big 12, of course, we are dominating the Big 12. I am planning to move to the Big 10 during this episode. I know it might not be super realistic. We actually haven't been in the Big 12 that long in the grand scheme of things, but to make the series, I think, a little bit more interesting here in the last few seasons before College Football 26, I think it'd be fun to face some different teams, some tougher opponents, and the Big 10 is kind of calling my name. So we'll probably be moving away from the Big 12, and we've kind of been dominating it anyway. I don't really know if there's a team here anymore that can really keep up with us. I think in terms of recruiting, Kansas State is the only team even like remotely close to us. In the Big 10, Oregon goes 13-2. Such a good season just to fizzle out at the end. They were honestly who I was expecting to be facing in the semifinal, but of course we got Clemson instead. Nebraska, Michigan. I mean, look at all these Big 10 teams that would be really, really fun to play against. And we might move Rutgers out like into the Big 12 just because they've been so bad for so long. Maybe Indiana. One of these teams will get replaced with UConn basically. And we're just going to kind of forget realism a little bit for these last couple of seasons with that just for entertainment purposes. I think you guys will probably agree with me that it would be a lot more entertaining to face some of these other opponents in the final few years. Conference USA, Middle Tennessee State kind of ran away with it. They had a really good recruiting class as well. In the MAC, Ball State also kind of running away with it. Kent State 1-11. In the Mountain West, New Mexico State finishes ranked and they are 10-3. In the new Pac-12, Fresno State continuing to get disrespected. They go 13-1, 6-1 in conference, and they didn't even get put in the playoffs. That is insane to me. A 13-1 season, winning the Pac-12, which is not a bad conference. I wouldn't call it a power conference at this point, but it's probably the best of the rest at the moment. And they don't even get an invite. Insane. In the SEC, Texas and Kentucky were top there. Florida, Georgia were both really good. SEC has kind of fallen off in terms of like playoff experience at this point. Most of the teams just getting beat badly anytime it comes to the playoffs, except for Georgia, who of course was in the national championship with us a year ago. And then there's the Sun Belt, which Arkansas State ended up winning. Troy had the best record, however. And there you have it. That's the conference standings. And here's the final top 25 prior to advancing after the championship victory. We've got a lot of award winners this year. Player of the year goes to Dennis Colin, followed by Kevin October. Adonis Keough and Dalton Schmizniak both getting mentioned as well. Coach of the year is Matt Glenn, to nobody's surprise. Best quarterback is Nebraska's James Lieber. John Pelshak not even here. Best defensive player is dominated by the UConn Huskies. I mean, David Sun barely plays and he finishes 8th. Best defensive back was Joshua Dora. I think that this doesn't make any sense. I would have given it to Nate Putu before Dora for sure. And I probably wouldn't have given it to any of our DBs. I don't think any of them were nearly impressive enough to be the best defensive back in the country, but hey, here we are. Best running back is Kareem Ursua, finishing 1st. Borden actually finishes 8th. Best receiver, Ty Russ, is 1. Schmizniak, top 8. Lombardi Award goes to Kevin October, followed by a bunch of Huskies. The Johnny Unitas Award goes to Cameron Klutz of Fresno State. Best defensive end is Kevin October, followed by Adonis Keough, who won it last year. Best interior lineman, nobody here for UConn. Best tight end, Juan Beaver finishes 2nd. How bad are tight ends in college football? Juan Beaver did not deserve that in the slightest. The Broyles Award goes to our OC and our DC. Best linebacker is Colin, then Toole, then Sun, apparently. Best center, no UConn Huskies mentioned here. Lou Groza Award, no kickers for us, no Tyree Collis. And the best punter, Eli Chestnut, not named. Daryl Skaggs finishes 8th for best kick returner. And then we're back to player of the year. I honestly don't understand how these awards are handed out at all, because Dennis Colin, I think, deserves a player of the year. That one kind of makes sense to me. He had an incredible season. But a lot of these other ones, like, where is that best running back coming from for Kareem Ursua? I guess because he gets so many receiving yards. Where is that best defensive back coming from for Joshua Dora? I mean, he had a lot of tackles, but he had almost nothing else. And then, of course, you have the All-Americans, which we're just not going to be featured on really at all. I don't understand how it works. I think it's like strictly overall based. We did have Kareem Ursua make the 2nd team, but none of those players that won these awards made the 1st or 2nd team nationally. Ursua makes the freshman team. Sometimes I forget that he is only a freshman. Alex Fayad makes the freshman team. I think that's actually pretty deserved. The 1st team for the Big 12, Ursua makes, Novak makes, Toole makes, Colin makes, and Dora makes it to that. For the 2nd team, Dalton Schmizniak is the top wideout. Dom Osgood. Dom Osgood did not play this season. What? Dom Osgood was our backup left tackle all year. He maybe played a few snaps. Well, why is he the 2nd team when Manny Smith was obviously the better player, the guy who, you know, actually played? What? Nick Alonzo also makes the 2nd team. He didn't play either. He was he was a special teams guy. That's all he ever did. Nate Putu making it. That seems deserved. He was really good this year. I don't understand these at all. Freshman team, Juan Beaver makes it. I guess that could make sense if the Big 12 was weak at tight end. Horner makes it. He never played. That's kind of crazy, but hey, maybe other freshmen just didn't play either. Fayad makes it. That kind of makes sense. Katapano makes it, which is a little weird because he was injured, but could also make sense. Yeah, I just don't understand the All-Americans, to be honest with you. They don't make any sense. And with that, I think we are ready to start advancing. So let's head to the next week. Officially, we are the national champions once more. Our pro potential dropped to a B+. That's kind of funny. Coach stability jumps up to a B. Coach prestige. How does our coach prestige fall? We just won the second national title in a row. We've unlocked the CEO archetype. Here is the final top 25 officially. Tulane obviously is second, having made the national championship. UConn, though, is first and has received all of the first place votes. Oregon third, Georgia 4, Nebraska 5. And here is the rest of the top 25. And now we will continue advancing. So here is the moment of truth. This player's leaving screen has potential to be super anticlimactic or absolutely insane. Let's take a peek. Dennis Colin, persuasion chance is actually none. So good for him. He does not want to come back at all. He won 2 national titles. He's out. John Pelshak is not here. He is sticking around. So we've got some graduates. Max Cadet is getting drafted. His back is broken. Does he believe he can come back from that? That's crazy. More power to you, Max. You're a round 5 pick. You're coming off of a broken back. I mean, that's insane. Dalton Schmizniak, unfortunately, does not go pro. Clyde Novak makes it, though, round 7, which is lower than I would have anticipated for him. Pretty cool. But yeah, nobody else leaving. I'm surprised by that. Kind of expected for Colin. In fact, very expected, but surprised that not a single other name is out of here. They want the 3-peat. So goodbye, Dennis Colin. You were absolutely incredible this season. I think if he had stuck around for his senior year, he would have been like the best to ever play defense, but it was sort of expected that he'd be going pro. Well, sort of anticlimactic, unfortunately. I was almost kind of hoping that John might declare so that we had a bit of a quarterback controversy going into next season. We've got some good young quarterbacks on this team, but John will be a junior. He wants 3 in a row. So we're on to the transfer portal. Let's take a look at the draft results really quick, though. Colin goes round 1. Cadet actually goes in the 4th round, despite having a broken back. And Clyde Novak is a 6th round guy. UMass's Elijah Bjornsson goes pro. He actually goes in the 1st round. He was a really good running back for them. Georgia loses quite a few players to the draft, kind of as expected for the Bulldogs. And here is the transfer portal. So nobody is really ever interested in coming to UConn out of the transfer portal. Not that we really need anybody to be interested. I would absolutely, wow, we have a 4-star tackle. I stand corrected. Roger Moffitt of Liberty is interested in coming to UConn. I would absolutely snag a really good tackle out of the portal, but to be honest, that's mostly it. And I just don't get that. Why would you not want to come play for the national champions? That doesn't make any sense to me. But literally all of these guys have us locked out. They're just not interested in UConn in the slightest. The next best guy is a 2-star. We don't even have any 3-stars interested. So it's just this 4-star guy, and that is it. It seems like the game is bad at kind of updating your team and what players would be interested in your team the longer you go in a dynasty. Because obviously, I think this all makes sense for the beginning of the UConn dynasty when we were, you know, a bad team with not much pull. But now we're back-to-back national champions. I think there's really not a player on the planet that wouldn't want to play for UConn. At the very least, there should be way more players interested at this point. But we will look at Moffitt for sure. We did, of course, just lose Manny Smith to graduation. So we need a new left side tackle. Maybe that's this guy. Let's go ahead and get him scouted. We obviously have way too many points, and he looks to be a really good pass blocker. Good run block finesse, decent strength, which was a little higher than an 86. 84 acceleration is very good for a tackle. He's an agile tackle, and he's 6'7", 306. The man is gigantic. So we're going to max him out at 65 points, and we are, of course, going to schedule that visit for as soon as possible. We only have a B+ for pro potential now, which kind of sucks, but it's still pretty good. If you're curious about the top available transfers, the best one is Nelson Jewell, the halfback from Ohio State. You actually might recall him from when we played Ohio State. There's also a left guard, an outside linebacker, and a center in the 4-stars. See if any names really jump out at me that I might remember, but so far not seeing anything super memorable, but a bunch of 4-star guys, 1 5-star guy, but of course none of them interested in the University of Connecticut. So we'll go ahead and advance again. Moffitt, oh my goodness, Penn State is super interested in Roger Moffitt. I don't know if we're going to be able to compete with that level of influence coming in from the Nittany Lions. We could see if we can snipe his hard sell. We know it has to include proximity to home and pro potential. So it could be the clutch. Can it be anything else? Actually, no, it cannot. The only thing this can be is the clutch. So we are going to snipe his hard sell. But to be honest, it just seems like it's a slim chance we're making up ground on that Penn State team. And I am certainly not going after any other 2-stars in the transfer portal. Those are the only only other guys interested. So we'll go ahead and advance again, see if we get lucky. I think we're just going to lose him to Penn State, unfortunately. Yeah, and he is just insta committed to Penn State. You know what? We did get pretty close. You can see it there in the bottom right. We weren't far off. So unfortunately, we can't get a tackle in. So officially, we have our recruiting class. We'll see where it ends up after any transfers happen, but currently it is the best class in the country. So now we are on to National Signing Day, and we can see the development traits of all of these players. So, but let's look real quick. We did still end up with the #1 class even after the transfer portal. So another back-to-back now #1 recruiting classes for the UConn Huskies. But here we go. It's the moment of truth. Everett McLeese. Everett McLeese has elite development for a safety. Off to a flying start. Dante Breida, likely a quarterback, has star. Cam Key, a tight end, has star. Gordon McAdley, an outside linebacker, star. Normal for the safety Brett Teague. Impact for the linebacker Steve Grimes. Impact for Bobby Broyles. Impact for Dalton Squared. Normal for David Rambo. Impact for wide receiver Greg Kelly. Elite for middle linebacker Byron Harper. We hit on another one, ladies and gentlemen. Raheem Lovelace, Joey Terrell, Dennis Colin, and now Byron Harper. We are just sick to our stomach with how good linebackers are at the University of Connecticut. Impact for middle linebacker Tyree Welsh. Elite for the tight end Nazir Hinish. 6'5" vertical threat with 86 speed. He has elite development. I've never had a good tight end in this series. Is it finally Nazir Hinish? Star for the wide receiver Lewis Norden. Elite for the outside linebacker Khalil Rabe. Elite for Anferni Cantrell, the left end. Elite for the elusive back Dennis Blade. I can't stop winning. Impact for Madison Steiner. And elite for the right tackle Raheem Hacker. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total elite development players in a class that only included 19 in total. This is the best recruiting class I've ever had, and it's not particularly close. I mean, we hit on just about everyone. There's what, 2 normal development players in this whole class? 2. There are 2 normal development players in this entire class. David Rambo and Brett Teague. That is it. Insane recruiting class. Like, so good I want to throw up. And now it's time for position changes. So I did mention that Ursua, I think, would be a really good receiver. He's an 84 overall physical receiver. He's only 5'11", but I think what makes the most sense is to keep him as a halfback because it gives him the most versatility. It means I can use him as a halfback, but I can also always slot him as a receiver. Whereas if he is listed as a receiver, I can't list him as a halfback in the depth chart. So to keep him as flexible as possible, I'm going to keep him at a halfback. But I do plan to use him, I think, mostly as a receiver next season. He's also really good as a safety, by the way. But for the 2 athletes that we did get, there's Dennis Blade, who has elite development. Wherever we put him, he's going to be really, really good. Apparently, he's a great tight end out the gate, but he's only 5'10". Man's not playing tight end for us. He's a really good middle linebacker. Do we want another elite middle linebacker? We could get another one. He's good at receiver. He's good at safety. The guy's good at everything. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But where I truly want him is at halfback, an elite development, elusive back. He starts as a 78 overall. Dante Breida is a scrambler archetype quarterback. He actually is a pretty good receiving back. He can play corner. I think I just want him at quarterback, though. Speaking of quarterbacks, I think that there might be some merit to Lawrence Rogan becoming a halfback. 84 overall elusive back. He's a good, decent quarterback, but with Pelshak sticking around for another year, there's really no need for Rogan to be here. Tyler Trejo and Keenan Beagle, I think, are more than capable of being decent backups. I think we're going to move Rogan to halfback, and it's kind of up in the air who sort of the primary actual running back is going to be. Of course, there is Ursua, but as I mentioned, kind of have more plans to use him a bit more as a receiver. So Rogan is becoming a halfback, and we'll see what he can do from there. He becomes an 87 overall with the boosts, which this is before training, so he might actually end up being incredible. Here are his ratings caps as a halfback. They're really, really good. He can get a lot better with the hands. Elusiveness is maxed out, but the quickness could get better. He could get even a little bit faster, could become a better route runner. We'll probably change his number and change up his look now that he is switching to halfback. We do have a ton of halfbacks on this team now, but we'll see how everyone develops. We'll probably force somebody to transfer out here. Probably Matthew Bryant, given given that he's going into his junior season, and obviously he's already worse than Ursua and Rogan and Blade, who is a true freshman. And honestly, that is mostly it for position changes. We do have probably far too many players on this roster going into next season though, so I imagine the next step, making all those cuts, is going to be rather difficult. But it's about time to do that. Let's advance another week. And here are those training results. Kareem Ursua is a 95, Dexter or a 93, Hurd is a 92, Keo is a 92, DeAndre LaRue is a 91 out of nowhere. John Katapano jumps to a 91 as a sophomore. Our O-line is disgusting. Larry Vital is up to a 90. Pelshak stays mostly the same, right around a 90. Let's go position by position. So here's Pelshak. He's a 90. Trejo jumps up to an 86. As a reminder, Tyler Trejo has star development and Keenan Beagle has elite development. So we've got two quarterbacks for the future when Pelshak does decide to hang it up. Pelshak looks like almost the exact same quarterback as he was last season. Throw power didn't change. Short medium accuracy didn't change. He's not at his caps. Just didn't get a boost this offseason for whatever reason. That's a bit of a shame. Maybe it means he's going to stick around for his senior year now though. Lawrence Rogan is an 89 overall elusive back. That's so gross. He's got 93 carrying, 99 ball carrier vision. Yeah, I think moving him to halfback was the correct move. Juke move almost as good as Kareem Ursua. He's not nearly as good at catching, obviously. Von Borden though has 96 speed. That is nuts. Cal Volk 94. Bryant, still a 77. He's just at his caps. He's unfortunately going to be let go at this point. Anthony Giordano and Daryl Skaggs are the guys who make the biggest jumps. I was fully expecting Emmett Goda to be at the top. He's not. It is Giordano, it is Skaggs, it is Richie. Skaggs has 97 speed. Giordano is a huge speed threat. I think at this point, Tevin Madu is probably going to be told to transfer out. It's just not good enough anymore. Wow, we've got really good receivers down the board though. At tight end, of course, you saw Larry Vital jumps to a 90. He has elite development, so it's not entirely unexpected. The thing about him is he's just not super fast. He will, of course, be the tight end 1, but I think I might honestly play Hinish as the tight end 2 with that 86 speed with the elite development, though I'm not sure. We could keep it Randy Ty, could keep Juan Beaver. We did redshirt Dan Sanders thinking that maybe he'd see some boosts coming into a redshirt senior season, but we're just going to let him transfer out as well. At left tackle, top guy is Jamichael Newton at an 89. 91 for DeAndre LaRue. 90 for Nolan Lindsay. 88 for Kunazik. 88 for Taekwon Zachary. Subtle is a 90. Spanos is a 90. Even Leo Apple is an 88. 93 for Ort. 92 for Hurd. 89 for Tevin Dobbs. And an 89 for Frank Davis. Man, our O-line is so deep. Keo's up to a 92. Spencer McCartney as a redshirt freshman is an 86. 96 play recognition for Adonis. 93 on the power moves. 90 block shedding. I almost wonder if we move him to the interior with Darren Michelle and let a guy like McCartney have the outside. I'm not sure, but man, Keo is so good. Holy. 89 for Kevin October. Cook at an 84. Akindele jumps to an 84. At D tackle, Darren Michelle 89. Maka Gayton up to an 86 now as a senior. Jim Clemens, redshirt freshman, he has elite development up to an 81. Toole stays about the same at an 88. That's roughly where he was before. And yeah, linebacker definitely gets a lot weaker for us. David Sun's an 83 and Suataufa is an 82. So that sub linebacker role up for grabs. At corner, we just got so good at corner out of nowhere. John Katapano is a 91 with 98 speed. Our worst corner is Ben Talbot at an 81. We went from being really concerned about the corners last season to having maybe the best cornerback room in the country. Alex Fayyad's an 87. Duggan is an 89. Larry Hay is an 87. Radovich is an 84. Frederick Blanco with his insane speed, 84. I mean, it's just so good. Parker Sims is up to an 87. Free safety. Bosby an 85. At strong safety, Justice Willis is up to an 87. Our kicker Tyree Collis is up to an 87 overall. His accuracy went up to an 89 this offseason. Wow. And then Eli Chestnut about the same. But holy cow, a lot of huge improvements for this UConn team. I mean, if we don't three-peat, it's almost a disappointment. development. So now we can encourage transfers, we can set custom conferences, and that's the first thing I'm going to do because UConn will be joining the Big Ten this season. I just think it's time for a bigger challenge for the best team in the country, and we definitely need it at this point. They'll be in the Big Ten for this next season and probably the rest of the series. And the question, I guess, becomes, do we move a team out of the Big Ten to make a spot for us? Do we move a team into the Big Ten to, you know, make it a full 20 teams? I'm thinking we move a team out, and I think that team is Rutgers. I know this isn't obviously super realistic at this point, but just bear with me. We're going for kind of entertainment here in the last few seasons, and I think it'd be more fun for this team to be in the Big Ten. So Rutgers moves to the Big 12. We sort of just do a swap there, and they should have an easier time in the Big 12, but the Big 12 still a really good conference. So now in the Big 10, we go up against, you know, some big name teams like Penn State, who's stolen some recruits from us, Ohio State, who we beat this season, Washington, USC, Michigan, of course, and don't let me forget about Oregon. I think it should be a really fun season in the Big Ten. Obviously, a lot more travel, I think, in general, especially with all these West Coast teams, but we were used to traveling pretty far. Let me make sure the conference rules didn't get messed up, and look at that, they did. So bump this back up to 8 total conference games, and I bet the Big 12s got messed up as well. It did. Bump that back up to 8 total conference games. So there you go. UConn officially to the Big Ten. Should be a fun next season. And now we get to encourage transfers. I think it's going to be a huge number. Oh, it's not that bad, actually. So as always, I'm kind of just going to go position by position and cut the most obvious people. And I think the most obvious one here is Matthew Bryant. The guy's just not going to play. He's been passed by Lawrence Rogan switching positions. Creamer Sua is obviously at the top. I plan to use Von Borden quite a bit with that 96 speed. Bryant's just not cutting it. He's too small as a power back. Sorry, pal, you're out. Now, we might want to remove a receiver, and I think that just has to be Tevin Madu. He has been jumped by so many guys. Giordano, Skaggs, Gastineau, Richie, like everyone is just above him in the depth chart now. And I love him, and he was obviously a huge piece of 2 championship teams, but he just doesn't have that skill ceiling that these other guys have. And I'm sorry, but Tevin Madu, you're out. At tight end, we kept Dan Sanders around to see if he would improve at all, but he did not. He is out. David Maddox has been on the team for quite some time. He's just not cutting it anymore, so he is cut from the team. I'm tempted to let Randy Radovich go. He has bad skill caps compared to the guys around him. I know he's like one of the fastest corners on the team. It's hard to say what we should do. He's so good. Like, he's just very solid. Feels weird to let him go, but he's, you know, the oldest. He's at his skill caps. He might not play that much, and he's a transfer risk because he's not getting that playing time that he wants. So, like, is there a point in keeping him if he's just going to transfer next season on his own anyway, and he's really not going to play this year, and there's not much development to be had? Obviously, it feels a little dumb letting go of a player with, you know, his type of ratings, but at the end of the day, I think he's just going to be off the team next season anyway. For what it's worth, he is our best press corner, 82 press. That is the highest on the team. So I managed to find a way to keep Randy Radovich. I got down to 85 without having to cut him. I think if he can earn playing time, if there's injuries, you know, might as well keep him on the team. He's plenty good. And now the offseason is almost over. It's time to set up my recruiting board and come up with the schedule for this season. We are now a part of the Big Ten. Here's the Big Ten schedule. We finish with Michigan and Michigan State on the road. And in fact, our last 5 games are on the road, and I cannot change that. So we're going to have our final home game of the season against Wisconsin in week 9. 5 straight road games. Minnesota, Ohio State, UCLA, Michigan, Michigan State. That is a tough stretch all on the road. So for our opener on the season, I think one team that would be really fun to bring back is the Syracuse Orange. They've been really good in recruiting, and they continue to steal some of our better recruits, and I would love to play them again. And then in week number 2, we're gonna play Georgia. At this point, this has become a little bit of a mini rivalry to me. We, of course, beat them in the national championship, only to lose to them last season on the road. Well, this time, they get to come to Connecticut, and we'll see if we can get the dub at home. Then we're gonna go on the road week 3. We're gonna face Fresno State, a team that I think was totally snubbed from the college football playoff. I want to see how good this team really is, even especially now that they've lost their senior quarterback. And then back at home, let's give ourselves maybe a little bit of an easier matchup before we open Big 12 play. And we'll make that a rivalry matchup at home against UMass. And then Nebraska, a bye week, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio State, UCLA, Michigan, and Michigan State. I think this is going to be a really fun season. Weird that we have 5 straight road games, but should be a good one. I also realize this kind of leaves us at a disadvantage in recruiting as well, because because we can't schedule late visits. In fact, our last bye week is week 7 and our last home game is week 9. So we better learn what these players want immediately and schedule them to visit immediately. And we are officially to the end of the offseason. I'll go through the depth chart. I'll figure out who's playing where and what we're doing this season, but we're looking to get that 3-peat. I do think that our run defense is maybe not going to be as good this year with losing guys in the interior like Dennis Colin and Clyde Novak, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching and for the continued support. If you find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that sub button for me. It does help me out a lot. I'll see you guys in the next episode where UConn kicks off year number 8.